Look at this slide. Wouldn't you find it difficult to memorize all that? Japanese has 92 basic characters in their alphabet, up from the mere 26 in the English alphabet. Now imagine you had to memorize all that, plus a large number of vocabulary words. Now wouldn't that be a problem? Hi, I'm Micah Bushman, and I've come up with a solution to that problem. This year, as my Congressional App Challenge submission for Representative Melanie Stansbury's 1st Congressional District, I've written Hiragana Teacher. Hiragana Teacher is a website which helps you memorize Japanese characters, words, and numbers. It does this by showing you a piece of text and then asking you to translate it, which helps you learn your vocabulary faster. Additionally, I also engineered a sort of AI which learns what you're bad at and helps you learn it faster. Here's how this app came to be. During this school year, I'm taking a Japanese class, which means that I have to memorize all the Japanese characters, all the numbers, and various words, phrases, and grammar items. I personally found that I was facing the most difficulty in learning the words and characters, so I wrote a prototype program to help me with this. While it was conceptually identical to the final version, it was extremely difficult to use and could only be used on my computer. One day, I was using this program before my Japanese class started, and one of my classmates asked to try it. After trying it, he said that it was good, and so this inspired me to work on a much easier to use website version. As a final touch, I also produced separate versions for smartphones and computers so that it would be even easier to use. Let's take a look at each version of the app, starting with the original console version and then moving to the website versions. Here's the console version. You can see that the program lists the sets it has installed, and I can choose one. Before I do, I'd like to say that each one of these sets was individually programmed into the code, and so I have to edit the code to put more in. This took absolutely forever and wasted a lot of time. Here, there's one feature that I removed in later versions, the ability to practice multiple sets at the same time. In this version, the user can select multiple sets by entering the corresponding numbers of each set, separated by a comma, as I will do now. You can see that it asks me, what is the syllable for this character, and then shows the character Ju. I can type it in, and it reacts accordingly. It immediately goes on to the next character after you press enter to submit the answer. Also, if I type it in wrong, the program tells you that you got it wrong. As this version also contains the sort of AI I mentioned earlier, the user can type end to end the program, and it shows how biased the program is towards picking certain characters or words. I removed this ability to see the AI's biases in later versions because it was only really useful for myself in debugging the program. Let's move on to the next most advanced mobile version. When designing this version, I took special care to make it easy to use on mobile by giving it larger buttons and text. You can see that it gives me a drop-down, which, if I click it, shows a list of available sets. This list is obtained from the server, so it dynamically updates as other users create or remove sets. If I select a set and hit start, it goes to the game screen, where the user is quizzed on the set's contents. On this screen, the user is asked another question. What word is this? It then shows the word that it wants the user to translate with a box labeled translation below. Like the old version, if I enter the correct answer in the box and hit submit, it will check it and tell me if it's right. Also, if I enter the wrong answer, it will say I was wrong. At the bottom of the screen, there's a back button, so the user can go back to the selection screen and choose another set to practice. Finally, let's move on to the most advanced version, the desktop version. This version is a little bit complicated, so let's go over what each part of the site does. Starting from the top center of the image, number 1 is a page selector. Here the user can choose to view either the home or about page. I'm not going to show it here, but the about page just links to a download of the console version. You can check it out on your own if you're interested. Number 2 is the login button, which uses the above username and password inputs to log in. Next, number 3 is just a link to create an account, which you'll see in the demo. Number 4 is the list of sets that are available. Number 5 is just the desktop version of the start button. Clicking it starts the game. Finally, number 6 is just a display of the set's name and length. Between number 5 and 6, there's also a display which shows the set's author's name. Alright, now that you know what everything is, I'll show the actual site off in action. When the user initially loads the site, this is what they see. They can use the site without logging in, but they don't have the ability to create or edit sets. Let's start with creating an account. If the user clicks the sign up button, this is what they see. In addition to the ability to create word sets, when a user signs up, their progress on learning is saved to the server. So if they're consistently bad at knowing what a certain word is, the computer will remember it if they log in again, and teach them better. If I enter a username and password here, then hit the sign up button, the website will create my account and log me in. You can see now that since I'm logged in, I now have a button labeled Create a Set. If I click on it, it takes me to this screen. Here, the user can create a custom word set so that they can practice their own vocabulary in addition to what's already added. As an example, let's create a test set. I can also set the visibility of a set here. Public sets are visible to all users, while private ones can only be seen by the user who created them. When creating a set, I have the user enter the name of what they're matching, usually a word, a number, or anything else, so that the program can name it correctly, like, what is this word, rather than what is this. I also have them enter the name of the answer here, a translation usually, so that the program can tell them that they got this word wrong rather than this wrong. Below, the user can enter as many word combinations as they want, using the green plus button to add as many rows as they need. If they want to remove the row, they can click on the red minus button to remove the row. Once the user has finished creating their set, they can hit the submit button to save their edits or finish creating their set. After that, they can hit the back button to go back to the main menu, where they can now see that their set is visible. If the set is private, it will show up at the top of the list, while public sets are randomly ordered. To run their newly created set, the user can just hit the run button. That will open the game as if it were any other set. If the user wants to edit their set, they can click on the blue wrench icon, which goes back to the editor. As an example, I'll change the visibility of this set to public and log myself out by reloading the page. If I scroll down, you can see now that the set is visible to all users and has my username next to it in the author column. If I scroll back up and log in, then scroll back down, the edit button will also appear right next to the set. To wrap this demo up, I'll delete the set. If I click the delete button, I can now see that the set is gone from the list and no longer accessible. Also, as an example of what it looks like with an actual set, here's a quick look at my set for Hiragana. One cool feature that I didn't show in the example set is the ability to add multiple answers, which the user can do with a / like in my answer for woe. The syllable woe can be written as both woe or o, so I allow users to list multiple answers. This is also useful for when creating vocabulary lists, as words frequently have multiple meanings. Any of the answers can be entered and considered correct. Anyway, that wraps up my demos for this. Earlier, I mentioned that the site will remember the user's biases towards getting an answer wrong, and that's processed by loading the user's weights from the server when they're logged in and a set is open. Then, when they submit an answer in-game, the app checks every 2 seconds to see if any translations were entered. If they were, the app reports the changes in their biases back to the server. The reason that I have the website report changes every 2 seconds is that it saves bandwidth. When a user gets good at remembering words or characters, they might be able to answer multiple questions within those 2 seconds. So the system saves bandwidth by grouping changes together and sending them all at once, rather than individually. If you're wondering about line length, you can see that on screen now. When I was making the original console version, I had to include the sets as baked-in lines of code rather than in separate files, so that's included in its line count. The real line count was only about half of that, or around the 238 lines that the mobile version is. The mobile version is an almost exact translation of the console version, just remade for mobile rather than on console. Both the phone and desktop versions also interact with up to 378 lines of code which make up the website's API, with another 295 lines of code constituting the server itself. The API handles things like getting an author's name, the visible character sets, creating, updating, and deleting sets, logging in, and updating the user's progress onto the server. With the desktop version, in addition to its 554 lines of code, another 142 lines can be downloaded in order to create sets or accounts. In all of the versions, I use a sort of AI to help the user learn. It's only a sort of AI because the computer just learns which words you're having trouble remembering and tests you on the harder ones more. As an example of what the data it gathers looks like, you can see it on screen now. I track 3 things: the character, the syllable, and the chance. The chance basically tracks what chance a word has of getting chosen. It goes up by 2 when you get the word wrong, and goes down by 1 when you get the word correct. When the computer goes to choose a word, there's a 1 out of 3 chance that the word with the highest chance gets chosen, whereas the other 2 out of 3 times it just chooses randomly. I found that 1/3 chance worked best for helping the user learn, as 1/2 is too common and 1/4 is too rare. All in all, the system's pretty complicated, so I faced several difficulties when making it. 3 challenges I faced were in creating the login system, the server, and the system for dynamically loading parts of the page. When I was creating the login system, I found that I had a hard time making sure that all of the data was created in the correct format. So I basically created a model of what I wanted the data to look like, and then I wrote the program around that. There was also some difficulty in creating the systems for updating progress and creating sets, as both of those depend on the login system to work correctly. I also felt that it was difficult for me to create the server that the page actually runs on. Previously, my server worked, but it was difficult for me to actually program around. When I was creating a previous project, I realized that I could fix it, and so I did. The new version of my server allows me to very easily create a module of code that I want to run and install it without even restarting the server. This is important because taking down my server might result in data being lost for certain other projects. The third difficulty I found was in creating a system that dynamically loads content. Things like the set creation page and the account creation page aren't loaded in when the page first loads on desktop or mobile. This helps the page be more performant and also to load faster on slower internet connections. All 3 of these things helped towards the 4th challenge I faced, which was getting a perfect score on the Lighthouse website benchmark, which is basically a score that says how well a website performs in user accessibility, how well Google understands it, and actual performance. Even though I'm personally happy with where the website's at right now, I feel that it could be better if I added a few more things, like allowing users to upload thumbnail images, remaking the mobile version's UI, or adding the ability to practice multiple sets at once back in. I also have a video from my classmate who tried the app. Here it is.
After using Hiragana Teacher, my test grades have been higher than ever. I'd recommend this.
I also shared this website with my teacher and she wrote the following about it. You can read it on screen now. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you want to check out the website, you can use the links in the description to get there. You can also look at the rest of my website too, if you want. The code is also on GitHub as well, so you can check that out if you're interested. If you like stuff like this, you might also be interested in my Congressional Challenge winning submission from last year, so check that out if you want. All the links will be in this video's description for you to click on. Thanks for watching, sayonara.